Hi guys, welcome to this hopefully quite brief tutorial on the AQA Unseen Poetry comparing question, which is, I think it has the helpful number 27.2 in the AQA's exam, so once you flick through the millions of other questions on that paper, it's right at the end, a reminder that you would be doing both. Now, in the previous tutorial where I was focusing on the first question, where you'll look at just one poem, I mentioned that this is only worth 8 marks out of this paper, this comparison question. And by the time you get to this point, you are going to be shattered, your hands will ache, you will just have lost the will to live completely. And I just really want to reassure you, don't stress about this, don't feel anxious. It is only 8 marks in the grand scheme of things. And what can you possibly get done in 10, at the most 15 minutes? Not a lot of anything. A reminder of how this is marked in terms of comparing language structure form, using subject terminology, and ultimately comparing effects on readers. And at the top end, that would need to be convincing. You would need the examiner to buy into it and believe it. So I'm not going to focus on looking at this, the sideway back, because we looked at that in the previous tutorial. But what would I do if I was approaching this question then, which is asking me to explore the experience of mothers, the similarities and differences in those experiences? Well, we already know quite a lot, don't we, about the experience of being a mother in the sideway back. It is an anxious one. It is a frightening one. It is one that is fearful, and it focuses mostly on those more negative emotions. There isn't sort of particularly a sense of joy in the child's independence and freedom. It's all focusing on the what could go wrong. So the experience of motherhood doesn't feel like something you particularly want to sign up for if it's that frightening. So in roller skaters, you would have really little time. You're not going to have time to do full annotation and find 5 different elements of structure and 18 different elements of language. So what you would need to be doing is just looking for a couple of things, getting some core ideas. So if you just pause the video now and have a read through roller skaters and think about the experience of the mothers. Okay, so imagining that you've just done that, hopefully what you would pick up on is this bit down at the bottom, the heartbeat in her mouth, this metaphor where we ultimately see that the mum is, the experience of being a mother is quite anxious and frightening, because you see children doing things that, in this case, being on roller skates, but you see them doing things where they could hurt themselves, they could injure themselves, and that's frightening. But it's not the same as this one, is it? It's not focusing on all the terror that could be there. And in fact, this poem uses this kind of this imagery here. It's almost a semantic field, really, of birds. And birds, what are the connotations with birds? Well, freedom. The idea of they can fly where they want, and they've got that independence, which obviously links into, as children are growing up, mums have to deal with the idea of their children maybe rebelling. Certainly they want to fly metaphorically and do their own thing. So that's all I would be doing. I would be thinking about, right, what's similar? They're both worried. What's different? This one's paranoid and neurotic. This one, the poet explores the idea of freedom and independence. And to be honest, this feels, there's some joy in this. It's celebration, isn't it, of young people doing some great things. Now, I was quite strict with myself because you do only have 10 minutes in the exam. So what I wanted to do is I gave myself 10 minutes exactly of just concentrated time writing, and I could do this page in 10 minutes. And some of you are going to be way more brilliant than me, but I would suggest that you should not be thinking you're going to get 2 sides done in this exam, because you've got to think, you've got to be thinking carefully about every word, and it's far better to do one side of concise writing where everything you put down makes sense, everything fits together, rather than trying to go, I need to do 6 P points. You really, really don't. I'm going to give myself a lovely 8 out of 8. It gives me satisfaction, even though I've written that and I'm a teacher, but still, this is what I would deem to be a full mark response. So note how I start off with drawing connections, if I had a highlighter that worked, with drawing connections between the two poems. What is something that they both do? Well, both of them explore motherhood as being a terrifying, fearful time. So what I've done here is I've sort of got my point of comparison. The experience of being a mum is terrifying and fearful. So I've got that in there straight away. And I'm going to develop this. What else can I say? Well, both mothers are terrified of the dangers their children face. So I've got, again, a very precise sense of comparison here. So I'm going to go into the one text. In roller skates, the metaphor, so I've got some terminology, heartbeat in her mouth, illustrates the sheer anxiety the mother experiences when her child begins roller skating. Likewise, so I've got another, so again, this is my third point where I'm connecting the poems. Likewise, the mother in the sideway back experiences genuine fear, this time of more sinister dangers. So again, I'm making a link. This one mum is scared of the roller skating, but this one, she's scared of something that is more sinister. The sexualised image of Love by Ali and violent connotations of Dead Dog Lane, combined with the ambiguous footstep you don't hear, suggests that the mother is either paranoid and neurotic, or that her life experience means she's all too aware of the dangers her child fears. Now, I've included here an alternative interpretation, and equally I've got in here some embedded quotes, which is always nice, you know, put a quote within your own response. And I've also got some terminology, ambiguous connotations. So I'm showing a number of skills here in this next paragraph. Whilst gross, so I've found some similarities. Whilst gross focuses on the mother's experience being one of total fear, Nichols also creates, see, going back is so important. Nichols creates a celebratory, euphoric tone. So this is clear comparison. And whilst, like I used both, using whilst pinpoints that I'm going to say that one poem is slightly different to the other. So this one's really fearful, however this one creates a celebratory, euphoric tone. And see the way in which I'm referring to the poet's doing something. The semantic field, or terminology, of birds, and I've got here a cluster of examples. It's good if you can find several examples to support your ideas. So what have I got here? Earthbirds rising, air leap, smooth swoop of youth, illustrates the child's newfound freedom. Whilst the mother is presented as nervous and fearful, Nichols also includes this line at the end. Oh, sorry, pardon me, my own handwriting, I can't even read it. Nichols only includes this line at the end, choosing instead to focus on the child's increasing liberation from their mother. The mood is less sinister and fraught with deadly potential. So again, I've got another element here of comparison. And actually, I've brought in structure, because I've said, you know, it's right at the end. I've got another comparative word here. Whilst both poets focus on the natural fears mothers experience, the sideway back feels overly protective, focusing far more on the irrational, paralysing fear of this mother. Now, I could read this back to myself and do, as I'm reading through it to you, and feel like, oh God, I've missed loads out. I could have mentioned blah, 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 blah. I could have put this in. I've missed that bit out. I haven't done this. I haven't done the full peel structure. But realistically, in 10 minutes, what can I do? How much more can I produce? So there's two things that we need to think about for this question. One is really important. Don't stress, don't freak out, don't sort of get in your own head and tell yourself that you're not doing enough for it. You can do very little in 10 minutes or so that you have to write this comparing response. So focus on what the poets are doing. Try and find something that's similar about them and find some examples, and then look and see what's different about them and see if you can get some examples there. If you can then focus on the effects on readers, you've done everything you can. So I look at this and I don't think it's the best thing I've ever written, but what I've done hits everything it needs to on the mark scheme, and it would be getting you full marks in the exam. Okay, best of luck, guys.